Well, we've got a theme going here tonight. Not death, but life and death and life and living. And so, Sean, I was going to tell a dog story, and I'll tell you that later privately.
Okay.
So I've changed up my story for tonight, and it's about a story that happened when I was in my late 30s. I had decided to go to Cabo San Lucas with an interesting boyfriend. And by interesting, I mean the kind of boyfriend who's fun and dangerous in a fun way, or fun and unpredictable. So I had found a really lovely resort that's probably been decimated by this hurricane. Unfortunately, that makes me sad. And it was perched on the cliff at such an elevation that all of the rooms had a great vista of the sea. And they were terraced, sort of like in Italy. And what was especially great about this resort is that they had placed the pool and the hot tubs on this outcropping of the cliff area, so that at the far edge you could really see the sea just beyond the railing. And the rest of the pool area had a platform that accommodated a lot of lounges. And then there was like part of it that dropped off. There was like a ledge that didn't have a barricade. After breakfast one morning, my interesting boyfriend, who was a bodybuilder, which also made him interesting to me, decided that he was going to go into town to see if he could find like a legit gym to do his workout, because the facility at the hotel wasn't superior enough. So I said, great, go do your thing, go find your gym. I'm going to be very happy poolside. That's where you can find me whenever you come back. So off I went, and I perched myself out on the patio. No one else was there. I had my book. I was in like glory. I was just so happy to be there, and nobody was around me. And I was in my zone. As you know, anybody who's been to Mexico, or that hot, hot sun, and that sea on the breeze, and so I was in my glory. Laying on my stomach, holding my book, reading, and then out of the corner of my eye, suddenly I saw movement. So I turned my head, but I couldn't make out what was moving, and I kept studying the concrete, and then sure enough, there was a little crab, maybe about this big, and I had never seen a crab like this before, so it had my attention. And I think, just being in that relaxed state, when you're calm, you just pay attention with a certain kind of a focus, and you kind of really get single-minded, whether you're bird watching or you're out in the forest looking at deer, you just kind of zone in on it. And I was zoned in on this little crab. And it was about the same color as the patio, stone-colored gray. And it was scuttling along, as crabs do, and going in this direction, when all of a sudden it just kind of like veered a little bit this way, and that kind of alarmed me, because at this point I'm pretty invested in this crab, because I could see that it was headed toward this ledge. And I knew that there was a drop-off, but I wasn't sure like exactly how much of a drop-off there was at that ledge. But it didn't get me out of my lounge chair at that point. I was still watching, thinking it's going to hang. And it was hanging pretty close to that edge for a while, and then it stopped a little bit, and then it would pick up, and then I must have blinked, and all of a sudden it was gone. And that's when my heart leapt, and I jumped up to see if it had survived the fall. So there's still nobody else around. I'm now bent over, butt up in the air, looking all over the ground to see if I could find this crab. Couldn't find it, and then suddenly I see that it's not on the ground, not 3 to 4 feet below. It's actually on the side of the wall, and it's holding on. Now that blew me away, because I had never, first of all, expected it to be there, but I had never ever seen a crab hanging on the side of the wall, going perpendicular. And then I got thinking, isn't that an interesting way to go through life? To be able to go through life looking at things sideways. That wasn't the first thing that was remarkable about this crab. So now, I'm marveling that it's hanging on, and then it's actually moving. The fact that it hadn't fallen was the first amazing thing, but then it could actually walk, and I thought, okay, that's pretty incredible to me, that this can stay up. And I was in that happy zone that, okay, it hadn't died, and it's still hanging on, and oh my God, what? Oh my God, it fell. And it fell and landed on its shell, and then rolled, and it had hit a few rocks, and now I'm really sad because it had stopped, and it had landed up like this, and those little feet or arms or whatever those things are called had stopped moving, and I stopped moving because I didn't know what I was going to do about it, and then I was still in that zone, that concentrated zone, where I thought, I'm just going to watch and see what happens next, and then all of a sudden, those little appendages started twitching really rapidly, and boom, before you know it, it had righted itself, and kind of seemed like it had, like, was dusting itself off from the sand, and then it went off in this direction, which also blew me away. And I watched it for just a few moments, and then it kind of went out of my view. And I was happy that it wasn't dead, and I was amazed that it had recovered so rapidly. And I went back to my perch, my lounge chair, and I picked up my book, and I was waiting for my interesting boyfriend to come back to tell him about the crab. And eventually he shows up, and he's all kind of glistening and glowy from that post-workout that he had, and he was very happy to see me. And we decided to go for a walk on the beach, and I was still in my happy zone when I started telling him the story about this crab. And I said, you know, Daniel, the thing about this crab is that it got me thinking about my life, and like, if I were that crab and I had fallen off that wall, well, first of all, I wouldn't have put myself in such peril. I wouldn't have gone to that edge. But if I had fallen off that ledge, and if I had survived the fall, I would have wallowed there for a long time. I would have been licking my wounds, and I would have been yelling for help, and I'd been looking for somebody to rescue me. Now, granted, I'm not that person anymore. This is when I was in my late 30s. But at that time, I would have dealt with it totally differently, and I would have eventually got my shit together, and I would have gone back to the wall. And I would have attacked that wall. I would have tried to get back on that patio ledge. I would not have let that wall defeat me. And I would have been persevering, and I would just have that determination, that can-do attitude. So he's listening to me, thinking, okay, who is this woman I'm with? Because, man, that is not who I am. So I said, well, what do you mean, Daniel? I said, what do you mean you're not like that? What would you have done if you were that crab? And he said, well, you know, I do some risky things, and so I wouldn't be surprised if I would have fallen or gone too close to the edge. He said, but if I had fallen off, he said, I'd be like you. I would wallow, and I'd lick my wounds, and I'd hang probably longer than you would. And I'd feel sorry for myself, and I'd, you know, feel maybe shame that I wasn't strong enough to hold on to the wall. But he said, I wouldn't go back to that wall. I would dust myself off, and he said, and I'd keep going. I said, you would? You wouldn't try to get back on that wall? He says, oh no. He says, I never look back. I don't go back. Wow. Wow, I'm thinking. Wow, he wouldn't go back. He wouldn't even look back. I said, wait, why not? Why wouldn't you look back? Why wouldn't you go back? He said, it hurts too much. To look back hurts too much.
Wow.
He said, no, I keep going. So we finished our walk on the beach, and I still couldn't let this crab story leave me. Because I felt like we have many different experiences in our lives that change us. And they usually come in unexpected times and in an unexpected way. And this crab was one of those moments for me. So we ended up leaving Mexico, and I decided I needed to write this story. I needed to just kind of, because I'm a writer, I wanted to kind of flesh it out and analyze it a little bit more. And as I was writing the story, I realized, okay, this is a children's book. So one of the reasons I'm telling this story tonight is this is one of my next books, is finally putting this into print as a children's story. Because the story for me was, what kind of a crab are you? And once I learned from this little crab that I had a choice, whether my upbringing had conditioned me or mentors along the way had shown me a certain way to approach my life that made me feel like perseverance, just the stamina, not that I was an argumentative or defiant kind of a person. It wasn't that I would attack the wall with any kind of anger, but that I was going to run my life and control what I could about my decisions my way. And if the wind knocked that crab off, or the crab didn't have enough stamina, whatever made the crab fall, that crab was able to make a decision that it didn't matter that it was starting out going this way and then it ended up going that way. It just seemed to be happy that it was alive. And I thought, that's the answer. It ultimately really doesn't matter which direction you choose to go in, but to be aware that you're alive and you're happy, and you have a choice whether you want to go attack that wall as many times as you want, or if you want to just give it up. It's all good. It's all good. And from that moment on, like your life-changing moment where you made a pledge that you were going to show up and handle it a certain way, that's the pledge I made to myself, that whenever a situation came up, I could make that choice myself to either go back to the wall or go in a different direction and be happy about it. But I was not going to wallow and lick my wounds and dilly-dally. I was going to get on with it.
Well, thank you for this wonderful story.
And I appreciate this so much. And because I've already purchased one,
Oh, okay.
and because I feel generous,
Yes?
we should have like a raffle and somebody can get this tonight. Okay?
That sounds great. Well,
Wait, Daniel should get it.
Who's Danny?
Who's the
That was funny.
well,
So do whatever you want to do with it, but I want to be like, somebody else is going to need it because they're going to need to buy some books. And they need to buy some of your books, whether they're mine or not, doesn't matter. They need to fill it up, and thank you.
thank you also.
Yeah.
And Jay, you've heard the instructions. Someone in this bookstore tonight is going to get this bag, and it's going to be up to you. They're going to walk up to purchase something, and you're just going to decide, you know what? You need to have a Gatsby book bag.
Call him Jay.
It's time.
That's Jay.